When Marvel's was released, lots of reviewers said it's the worst MCU film to date. And now, with all the hype around Spider-Man No Way Home just about to be released, I thought, well, have a look. What if we compared all the films from the MCU to all the films from Marvel properties? So that's what I've done. I'm going to have a look at every single Marvel film and rank them from worst to best. Now, some just quick rules. So this list is primarily based on my own thoughts and feelings, but I have mixed up a little bit with scores from some of the leading websites. Now, because this is a lengthy list, and to make sure you don't get bored of my monotone voice, I have roped in a couple of people to help me. Firstly, I've got my regular partner in crime, John Joe, who's helped me out, and for the first time ever, my partner is actually going to help out as well. Ah, don't we look cute? Now, there is a link to John's channel in the description below. Anyway, let's crack on with this list. Number 70, Spider-Man, The Dragon's Challenge, 1981. Min Lo Chan, the Chinese Minister of Industrial Development and old college friend of J. Jonah Jameson, was wrongfully accused of treason and espionage during World War II. He flees Hong Kong to seek refuge in his daughter's house, Emily Chan, in the United States. To help him clear his name, Jameson enlisted the help of Peter Parker. However, the unscrupulous and dangerous businessperson Zelda is willing to use strong-arm tactics to make sure his firm gets a multi-billion contract with China. Now, although this was a two-parter from the Spider-Man TV series, it was released in the cinema. However, everything that was good about the series is actually missing from this film. It's also deeply racist. Seriously, Peter Parker goes undercover as a Chinaman. Who in their right mind thought that was okay? And to make this worse, this film is actually filmed on location in Hong Kong, but it didn't capitalise it. So this makes this film, without a doubt, the worst Marvel film ever. It's just such a shame it is Spider-Man.
Number 69, Captain America, 1990. During World War II, a brave, patriotic American soldier undergoes experiments to become a new super soldier, Captain America. Racing to Germany to sabotage the rockets of Nazi baddie Red Skull, Captain America winds up frozen until 1990s. He reawakens to find that Red Skull has changed identities and is now planning to kidnap the President of the United States. Starting off, this has some beautiful things about it. Some named actors in supporting roles, a comic-accurate story and villains. So why the hell is it so low on this list? Well, it sucked. Terrible action scenes, a boring story, and really, I mean bad acting from its leads. So how did this film get a sequel, which luckily is not on this list because it did not get a theatrical release, thank God.
Number 68, Fantastic Four, 2015. Four young outsiders teleport to an alternative and dangerous universe that alters their physical form in shocking ways. The four must learn to harness their new abilities and work together to save Earth from a former friend turned enemy. Now let's face it, this film was slated to fail before it was even released, all thanks to studio influence. They hated the unfinished version so much they cobbled together a completely different movie, resulting in a film with such an uneven tone. Now I'm going to be honest, I've not actually watched this film all the way through because I've tried watching it twice and both times I've just switched it off. That is how bad this film is. And what makes it worse, the cast themselves, they're not believable as the first family. Now, I'm not blaming the actors, they were written that way. And just don't get me started on the title. Fan Four Stick? What the hell was that all about?
67, Captain America, 1944. Superhero Captain America battles the evil forces of the arch-villain called the Scarab, who poisons his enemies and steals a secret device capable of destroying buildings by sound vibrations. The very first Marvel film is so old it predates Marvel. Now on paper, this film should be last. Other than Captain America, there is nothing to do with the comics. No Steve Rogers, no shield, his actual shield, nothing. So why is it not last? For a film that's nearly as long as Endgame, it is not that bad. In researching this list, Berryman watched the entire movie. The strong story and great acting make this film deserving of being higher. However, as the lead actor, Dick Purcell was not in the best physical shape for this film. This caused his death, so this is probably the best place for this list.
Number 66, Ghost Rider, Spirits of Vengeance, 2011. Johnny Blaze, a man who made a deal with the devil who called himself Mephistopheles at the time, now Rourke, is on the run to make sure no one else is harmed by his alter ego, the Ghost Rider. He is approached by a monk named Moreau who tells him that he can help him free of the Rider, but first he needs Johnny's help to protect a boy whom Rourke has plans for and to take his human form. So Nicolas Cage returns to the 2007 film Ghost Rider with nothing good from that film returning. This film aims to be fun trash and just ends up being trash. The only people that enjoy this film are die-hard Cage fans. Now luckily I like Nicolas Cage and he is actually the only decent thing about this film. Thank God there were no more of these.
Number 65, Elektra, 2005. Elektra, the warrior, survives a near-death experience, becomes an assassin for hire, and tries to protect her two latest targets, a single father and his young daughter from a group of supernatural assassins. It's another sequel that no one asked for, a boring story, subpar action sequences, and once again, nothing really to do with the film before it. The biggest problem for this film was studio interference, which once again makes the film disjointed. Luckily, Jennifer Garner's acting was some of her best.
Number 64, Howard the Duck, 1986. A scientific experiment unknowingly brings extraterrestrial life forms to the Earth through a laser beam. First is the cigar-smoking Howard from the Duck's planet. A few kids try to help him from the greedy scientist and help him back to his planet. But then a much less friendly being arrives through the beam. Now, George Lucas had actually been trying to make this film since before Star Wars, and thank God he failed, because if he had made this before Star Wars, we wouldn't have actually had Star Wars. Now, we're not saying this film is bad, because it does have its moments, but it suffers with an uneven tone, mediocre performance. The story has no centre, the Duck's not really likeable, and the special effects, well, they're not really that impressive. And the sparkler on the birthday cake, we won't even mention that sex scene.
63, Ghost Rider, 2007. When motorcycle rider Johnny Blaze sells his soul to the devil to save his father's life, he is transformed into the Ghost Rider, the devil's bounty hunter, and is sent to hunt down sinners. 2007 was not a momentous year for the comic book films, and Ghost Rider was their worst. Ghost Rider is a sour mix of morose, glum histrionics, jokey puns, and hammy dialogue. Now, it is slightly better than its sequel, but only slightly. This film misses the whole rebel without a cause vibe that you get from the comics and plays it safe and conventional. Also, in hindsight, the tagline, "This is how legends are made," has not gone down well.
Number 62, Blade Trinity, 2004. Blade finds himself alone, surrounded by enemies, fighting an uphill battle with the Vampire Nation, and now humans. He joins forces with a group of vampire hunters who call themselves the Night Stalkers. The Vampire Nation then awakens the King of Vampires, Dracula, from his slumber with intentions of using his primitive blood to become Daywalkers. And on the other side is Blade and his team manifesting a virus that could wipe out the vampire race once and for all. In the end, the two sides will collide and only one will come out victorious. A battle between the ultimate vampire who never knew defeat, facing off against the greatest vampire slayer. The third film in a series seems to be the hardest to pull off, and we're only just starting this list off, and it is the second one on this list. The first two Blade films were great, but this film tries to be a carbon copy of its predecessors without any of the natural substance to back it up. It lacks the sharp narrative tone, the crisp comic book clarity of the early films. It just quickly descends into shapeless fights. It's just chopped into so many cuts that they lack all sense of form or rhythm. And the villain Dracula, the most famous vampire ever, is so dull, and he doesn't actually come across as any real threat.
Number 61, The New Mutants, 2020. After a near-death experience during a strange tornado, Danielle Moonstar awakens in an abandoned research facility run by the mysterious Dr. Cecilia Reyes. There, Dr. Reyes introduces Danny to four other equally uncommon teenagers: Ilyana Rasputin, Rani Sinclair, Sam Guthrie, and Roberto da Costa, who wants to keep them safe and sound until they learn how to be in complete control of their extraordinary abilities. However, even though the exceptional team of traumatized inmates believe that they are being treated and cared for. Before long, they all start to experience horrifying hallucinations. But this institution was supposed to be a safe place. Are they patients or prisoners? You know that a film will be wrong when the studio takes 3 years to release it. A spin-off from the X-Men series that does not have the heart of the X-Men. At best, this film can be called generic, and that's being nice, and making matters worse. This ended up being the last X-Men film to be released, to the once great X-Men franchise did not go out with a bang, but a whimper. Despite all the meddling and interference the film reportedly went through, the New Mutants feel pretty coherent in the end. What it does not achieve is a memorable personality of its own.
Number 60, Punisher, Warzone, 2008. Waging a one-person war against the despicable crime family led by a man known as Jigsaw. Okay, I'm going to be honest a bit here. This could have been an impressive film, maybe even a cult classic, if they had released this film 20 years earlier. It would have actually slotted in perfectly with the 1988 film scene, but it was released in 2008, so it failed. And to be honest, a lot of people do actually forget about this film because that's what this film is. Forgettable. A typical bad good guy takes out the bad guys.
59, Fantastic Four, 2005. 4 astronauts have their lives changed forever when they end up being hit by a cloud of cosmic radiation. Reed Richards can now stretch his body like elastic, Sue Storm is now the Invisible Woman, Johnny Storm becomes the Human Torch, and Ben Grimm becomes the Thing, a man made of rock. But there is one problem: the sponsor, Victor Van Doom, has also been affected with the full power, is a dangerous force and needs to be stopped before it is too late. Okay, might get some grief for this, but yes, The Silver Surfer was better than this film. All this film is good looking. Even the Thing looks good. Some great jokes, great costume design, impressive set pieces, but where is the love and warmth that we come to know and love from the Marvel's first family? It was missing, and a lackluster final fight. This film is more of a pilot episode of a TV series rather than a blockbuster film.
Number 58, Spider-Man, 1977. The adventures of freelance photographer Peter Parker, who discovered he had gained superpowers such as super strength, agility, the ability to climb sheer walls and ceilings after being bitten by a radioactive spider. After inventing a super sticky web serum, he donned a red and black costume. He began fighting crime as the superhero Spider-Man. During the day, Parker worked for the Daily Bugle and the Skinflint editor J. Jonah Jameson. Talking about pilot episodes, which is what this was. This was a backdoor pilot for a TV series released theatrically. And let's face it, it is full of 70s cheese and could quite easily fall in the so bad it's good category. Spider-Man himself is okay, just a bit bland, but it does do an excellent job of telling the Uncle Ben-less origin story, but it's not really, there's no comic book bad guys, which not only lets this film down, but it does actually let the whole series. But we're not on about the series, we're only on about the film here.
Number 57, Dark Phoenix, 2019. The X-Men, Protectors of Peace. Jean Grey is one of the most beloved X-Men, but when a mission goes wrong, Jean is exposed to a dark and ancient power. This power has destroyed everything it has come in contact with, until her. Now that this power is becoming unstable, she releases it with destruction and anger. Now that this foreign power is consuming her and the world is threatened, the X-Men must face an important truth. They must save either the world or their friend who threatens it. So a previous X-Men film wiped out the Phoenix saga from the franchise, so they made it worse. How is that even possible? Suppose you want to watch a good version of the Phoenix saga. Watch the 90s animated show. In that case, Dark Phoenix ends an era of the X-Men franchise by taking a second stab at adapting a classic comics arc with deeply disappointing results.
Number 56, The Punisher, 1989. When criminals murder Frank Castle's family, he wages war on crime as the vigilante assassin known only as the Punisher. On paper, this should have been brilliant. I mean, let's face it, Dolph Lundgren in his prime is perfect as Frank Castle. But due to lots of cheese regarding the sets and the dialogue, this didn't actually do that well. And it makes the Punisher a tedious one-person battle with never-ending action scenes. Now, all of this could have been forgiven if only he had worn the Skull t-shirt. But no, that, my friends, is unforgettable.
55. Daredevil, 2003. Fate deals young orphan Matt Murdock a strange hand when he is doused with hazardous waste. The accident leaves Matt blind and gives him a heightened radar sense that allows him to see far better than any man. Years later, Murdock has grown into a man and becomes a respected criminal attorney. But after he has done his day job, Matt takes on a secret identity as the Man Without Fear, Daredevil, the masked avenger that patrols the neighbourhood of Hell's Kitchen and New York City to combat the injustice that he cannot tackle in the courtroom. There was much hype around this film, especially as this was an audition for Ben Affleck to become Batman. A stellar cast, impressive set and costume design, and lastly, a killer soundtrack. All of this could not save this film from being stereotypically dull. Watching this film makes you wonder if Hollywood has a stereotypical superhero script and replace the lead with whatever superhero they want.
Number 54, Hulk, 2003. Bruce is an ordinary gamma expert whom one day gets blasted with radiation and somehow survives. But in the process, a monster was born. Whenever he gets angry, he grows bigger and stronger until he is no longer Bruce Banner. He becomes the Hulk. 2003 was nearly a really lousy year for comic books, but it was saved by another film that will appear later on this list. Now, this film did do something different. It did dive into the psychology of the Hulk, which was actually taken from the comics, so great for trying that. Now, while this ambitious film earns marks for style and an attempt for dramatic depth, there is ultimately too much talking, not enough smashing, and the shockingly lousy CGI just killed this film as it was just laughable.
Number 53, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, 2007. Everything seems to be going great for the Fantastic Four. Reed and Sue are finally getting married, and things could not seem better. However, when the mysterious Silver Surfer crashes things, they learn that they will have to deal with an old foe, and the powerful planet-eating Galactus. This film is everything you would expect from a movie that began in the pages of the 1960s comic book. Garish, giddy, emotionally simplistic, boldly idiotic, and mercifully short. It is almost a surprise that the sequel is better, much better than the original. But it was thanks to the Silver Surfer. It would have placed higher, except the ruined Galactus.
Number 52, X-Men Origins Wolverine, 2009. The early years of James Logan, featuring his rivalry with his brother Victor Creed, his service in the Special Forces Team Weapon X, and his experimentation into the metal-lined mutant Wolverine. Though Hugh Jackman does give his all, he cannot help X-Men Origins Wolverine overcome a cliché-ridden script and a familiar narrative. It tries to be an okay but not great Marvel movie that tells the early story of one of the prime X-Men, and it attempts to make its climax into a perfect coupling with the start of the known trilogy. However, it does foul all this due to bad CGI and ruining a fan favourite character that's supposed to be Deadpool, but really it is not.
51. The Punisher, 2004. Special Agent Frank Castle had it all: a loving family, a great life, and an adventurous job. But when his life was taken away from him by a ruthless criminal and his associates, Frank has become reborn. Now serving as judge, jury, and executioner, he is a new kind of vigilante, out to wage a one-man war against those who have done him wrong. The film suffers from the same problem as Warzone, where it is a well-done throwback to the old-school films of the 1960s and 1970s, which is not to say that it is the equal of those classics. The Punisher is pulp, served up gritty and ugly and brutal. It is not packed full of one-liners. What humour there is in this film is dark, but a good cast fails to alleviate the overly violent and by the numbers of revenge flick.
Number 50, Venom, 2018. After a faulty interview with the Life Foundation ruins his career, former reporter Eddie Brock's life is in pieces. 6 months later, he comes across the Life Foundation again and he encounters an alien symbiote and becomes Venom, a parasitic anti-hero. Venom's first standalone movie turns out to be like the comic characters in all the wrong ways: chaotic, noisy, and in desperate need of a stronger attachment to Spider-Man. As a result, it did not fare well with the critics, but audience did like it more. This film has its moments where it's dull and inconsistent tone. That being said, Tom Hardy's performance is highly praised, and this film would have suffered a lot worse without him.
Number 49, Spider-Man Strikes Back, 1978. 3 students at Peters University steal 5 kilos of plutonium oxide just to prove how easy it is to make a bomb. Spider-Man is on the scene and becomes a suspect, as does Peter Parker because of his scientific knowledge. Meanwhile, international criminal mastermind Mr. White means to retrieve the plutonium for his own use. The second of the Spider-Man TV series that was recut to be released theatrically. It improves on the first film with a better, more action-packed film that is easier to enjoy. Same issue with the lack of comic villains, but Mr. White has the making of a brilliant villain.
Number 48, Captain Marvel 2019. After crashing an experimental aircraft, Air Force pilot Carol Danvers is discovered by the Kree and trained as a member of the elite Star Force military under the command of her mentor, Yon Rock. 6 years later, after escaping to the Earth while under attack by the Skrulls, Danvers begins to discover there's more to her past. And with the help of S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Nick Fury, they set out to unravel the truth. So yes, this is the first MCU film on this list, and people aren't going to be surprised it's not Eternals. It's packed with action, humour, visual thrills, and an origin story that makes effective use of the franchise's signature formula. And that is where the problem lies. It's not original. It is a rehash of all origin stories. It makes the film's plot convoluted. However, Brie Larson's performance was a highlight.
47. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 2014. When New York is put under siege by Oscorp, it is up to Spider-Man to save the city he swore to protect as well as his loved ones. While the cast is outstanding and the special effects are top-notch, this instalment of the Spidey saga suffers from an unfocused narrative and an overabundance of characters. You cannot help but feel the franchise being counters at work here thanks to all the ominous foreshadowing and resolved character arcs. No wonder this franchise ended here and rebooted into the MCU.
Number 46, Spider-Man 3, 2007. A strange black entity from another world bonds with Peter Parker and causes inner turmoil as he contends with new villains, temptations, and revenge. This film is not quite as refined as the first 2 films. This film, let's face it, was a mess. With too many villains, subplots, romantic misunderstandings, conversation, and street crowds looking into the air going, ooh, then swiveling and shouting, ah. This film is just a shambles, and it does seem to make up the rules as it goes along.
Number 45, X-Men Apocalypse 2016. Since the dawn of civilization, he was worshipped as a god. Apocalypse, the first and the most powerful mutant from the Marvel's X-Men universe, amassed the powers of many other mutants, becoming immortal and invincible. Upon awakening after thousands of years, he is disillusioned with the world as he finds it, and recruits a team of powerful mutants, including a disheartened Magneto to cleanse humankind and create a new world order, over which he will reign. As the fate of the Earth hangs in the balance, Raven, with the help of Professor X, must lead a team of young X-Men to stop their greatest nemesis and save humanity from complete destruction. Back to the curse of the third entry, where we have 2 great films, then gets let down, and this film suffers from this curse as well. Overloaded action and a cliché villain takes the focus away from otherwise strong performers and resonate themes, complete with a climax in which the world must be saved, using as many assorted colours of energy beams as possible. What a waste of what could have been a great villain.
Number 44, X-Men The Last Stand, 2006. When a cure is created which apparently can turn any mutant into a normal human being, there is outrage amongst the mutant community. While some mutants do like the idea of a cure, including Rogue, many mutants find there should not be a cure. Magneto, who still believes a war is coming, recruits a large team of mutants to take out Warren Worthington II, and his cure might seem easy for the X-Men to stop, but Magneto has a big advantage which Wolverine does not have. Jean Grey has returned and joined with Magneto. The Dark Phoenix has awoken within her, which has the ability to destroy anything in her way, even if that anything is an X-Man. Another third entry curse on this list. Strangely enough, this film is not really that bad. The main story is surprisingly good, and it carries on the themes of discrimination that feature in the first 2 films. Now, what lets this film down is how it manages the Dark Phoenix story. I will go as far as to call this film half a mess.
43. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, 2021. Eddie Brock struggles to adjust to his new life as the host of the alien symbiote Venom, which grants him superhuman abilities in order to be a lethal vigilante. Brock attempts to reignite his career by interviewing serial killer Cletus Cassidy, who becomes the host of the symbiote Carnage and escapes prison after a failed execution. A sequel aimed squarely at fans of the original's odd couple chemistry, this film eagerly embraces the franchise's sillier side. It is fast, it is fun, and buried within its genuinely sweet story about friendship and self-acceptance. It is simplified, more focused, and even more intimate than its predecessor, but is not really comic accurate, and Venom and Brock do not have that relationship, so that is why this is so far down.
Number 42, Eternals, 2021. Following the events of Avengers End Game, an unexpected tragedy forces the Eternals, ancient aliens who have been living on Earth in secret for thousands of years, out of the shadows to reunite against mankind's most ancient enemies, the Deviants. An ambitious superhero epic that soars as often as it strains. This film takes the MCU in an intriguing and occasionally confounding new direction. This film is squarely fun, gratifying to watch despite its long runtime and a very standard superhero film. However, it is too long and it has some pretty slow spots mid-film and in desperate need of some more wit.
Number 41, The Incredible Hulk, 1977. A troubled scientist accidentally overexposed to gamma radiation curses him with a tendency to change into a beastly green brute under extreme emotional stress. The plot 2 episode of the 70s Hulk TV show were repackaged and released theatrically, and we got a damn good film. One of the major aspects that makes this film work is losing all the mindless brute side of this and concentrate on the lonely man theme that the show is centered around. Unfortunately, that is what lets this film down, as this theme is only set up here, not really shown.
Number 40, Return of the Incredible Hulk, 1977. When David makes his way to a hospital that has a machine that might be able to help him with his problem turning into the Hulk, he meets a young woman who's crippled and collapses. He brings her to her house and David cannot help notice that the treatment her doctor is giving her is strange. And when David starts asking questions, her stepmother tries to get rid of him. Now, to be fair, this could be a tie with the previous entry, but it's slightly higher due to the fact that the lonely man theme is here. And from here, the series went from strength to strength. No more were actually released theatrically though.
39. Blades 2, 2002. After the events with Deacon Frost, Blade continues to destroy as many vampires as he can. A new breed of super vampire has appeared, which becomes an even greater threat than any evil currently out there. A group of high-powered vampires led by Nyssa and Azad request help from Blade in order to take down Nomak. Can Blade work alongside the very things he vowed to destroy? Blade 2 is a rather brilliant showing, a comic book with dreams of becoming a textbook for mad surgeons. Although it offers more of what worked in the original, its plot and character development appear to have been left on the cutting room floor.
Number 38, The Wolverine, 2013. In modern-day Japan, Wolverine is out of his depth in an unknown world as he faces his ultimate nemesis in a life-or-death battle that will leave him forever changed. Vulnerable for the first time and pushed to his physical and emotional limits, he confronts not only lethal samurai still, but also his inner struggle against his own near immortality. The Wolverine features some breathtakingly suspenseful action sequences, exquisite production and costume design, and some colourful characters, some whom register more powerfully than others. This is one superhero movie that manages to stay true to the comics while keeping the casual viewers entertained. The Wolverine is a standalone adventure for the classic character that reminds us there is more to this genre than universal building and crossovers.
Number 37, The Incredible Hulk, 2008. Depicting the events after the Gamma Bomb, The Incredible Hulk tells the story of Dr. Bruce Banner, who seeks a cure to his unique condition, which causes him to turn into a giant green monster under emotional stress. Whilst on the run from the military which seeks his capture, Banner comes close to a cure, but all is lost when a new creature emerges, the Abomination. The Incredible Hulk may not be quite the smashing success that fans of Marvel's raging behemoth might hope for, but it offers more than enough big green action to make up for its occasional puny narrative. It does a lot of things that the 2003 Hulk did not. It is lighter and faster paced, it is funnier, and it embraces, instead of ignoring, the 1970s TV series that furthered the character's popularity.
Number 36. Thor: The Dark World, 2013. Thor returns to do battle with Malekith, the vengeful leader of a primordial race that seeks to destroy the Nine Realms. With even Odin unable to protect Asgard from the approaching darkness, the God of Thunder reunites with Jane Foster and prepares to make the ultimate sacrifice in order to save the world from certain destruction. This robust, impersonal visual effects showpiece proves buoyant and unpretentious enough to offset its stew of otherwise derivative fantasy action elements. It delivers the goods: action, otherworldly, grandiosity, romance and humour. There's just enough tension and humour in Thor: The Dark World to make the film's otherwise listless proceedings worth watching, but only just.
35. Iron Man 2, 2010. With the world now aware of his dual life as the armoured superhero Iron Man, billionaire inventor Tony Stark faces pressure from the government, the press and the public to share his technology with the military. Unwilling to let go of his invention, Stark, along with Pepper Potts and James Rhodey Rhodes at his side, must forge new alliances and confront powerful enemies. We reach the halfway point of this list, and with the third entry in the MCU, while this is not quite the breath of fresh air that the Iron Man was, this sequel comes close with solid performances and an action-packed plot. But to find a comic book hero who does not agonise over his super gifts and would defend his constitutional right to get a kick out of them, it's frankly a relief.
Number 34. Blade, 1998. Blade, along with his lifelong friend Whistler, battle vampires. Blade was born of a mother bitten by a vampire. He possesses all of their strengths and none of their weaknesses. He is known as the Daywalker because sunlight doesn't affect him. With the addition of a new ally, Dr. Karen Jensen, Blade endeavours to prevent the evil Frost from unleashing the blood gods upon the world. The first Marvel film with a black lead changed the landscape of comic book films with its dark story, the effects of which are still felt today. For about its first hour, the movie offers violent, visceral, rapid-fire entertainment that concentrates as much on developing a distinctive atmosphere as on advancing a minimalistic storyline before getting to a satisfying ending.
Number 33. Thor, 2011. The warrior Thor is cast out of the fantastic realm of Asgard by his father Odin for his arrogance and sent to Earth to live amongst humans. Falling in love with scientist Jane Foster, she teaches Thor much needed lessons, and his newfound strength comes into play as a villain from his homeland sends dark forces towards Earth. The hammer-hurling god of thunder kicks off this superhero summer of 2011 with a bang, thanks in large part to a charming, funny and winning performance from Australian actor Chris Hemsworth. This film delivers the goods so long as butt is being kicked and family conflict is playing out in the celestial dimensions, but is less thrilling during the Norse warrior god's rather brief banishment on Earth.
Number 32. The Amazing Spider-Man, 2012. The Amazing Spider-Man follows the origin story of Peter Parker's beginnings as the world-renowned wall crawler. After being bitten by a radioactive spider, Peter acquires amazing abilities which will help him achieve things one could only dream about. In a life-threatening fight for the city, Peter will strive to protect New York City from the threat of his friend-turned-enemy, Dr. Kirk Connors, who is transformed into the Lizard. A well-chosen cast and sure-handed direction follow the Amazing Spider-Man to thrill, despite revisiting many of the same plot points from 2002 Spider-Man. As a new chapter in the Spider-Man saga, it stands on its own quite nicely, focusing more on human emotions than a panoply of special effects.
31. Iron Man 3, 2013. When Tony Stark's world is torn apart by a formidable terrorist called the Mandarin, he starts an odyssey of rebuilding and retribution. Set after the team-up of the Avengers, this ran the risk of carrying the MCU on like nothing happened. Luckily, this is not what they did here. By carrying on with the after effects of that film, and the main character is what carries this film. This film would have been a lot higher if it were not for the Mandarin... Tony, the actor.
Number 30. Black Widow, 2021. Natasha Romanoff confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. There were fears that Black Widow would be 2 hours of Johansson being a kick-ass fighter in sleek leather with a few signature jackknife moves, but instead the film found to be much more interesting and absorbing. Some of the deeper themes are drowned out though in all the action, but it does remain a solidly entertaining standalone adventure that is rounded out by a stellar supporting cast.
Number 29, Captain America the First Avenger, 2011. At the outset of World War II, Steve Rogers wants nothing more than to join the army. The only problem is that he cannot pass the physical. He's tried several times under different names without success. Dr. Abraham Erskine notes his eagerness to recruit him for an experimental project. Rogers is soon transformed, both mentally and physically, into a super soldier, where he eventually faces off against the Nazi organisation Hydra and its head, known as Red Skull. The attempt at a Captain America live-action film, and this did get the franchise off to a great start. With plenty of pulpy action, a pleasantly retro vibe, and a handful of fine performances, Captain America is a solidly old-fashioned blockbuster entertainment. Just a shame that it did have an unnecessary post-converted 3D.
Number 28, Avengers Age of Ultron, 2015. After finding intelligence in Loki's scepter, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner use it to start Ultron, a peacemaker who soon uncovers the world's wrongs and plans to rid human error. With help from experimented human beings turned allies, the Avengers search to hunt for Ultron, who was trying to make a synthetic human body to upload his mind into. They team up again in this exuberant and eye-popping film. It serves as an overly stuffed but mostly satisfying sequel, reuniting its predecessor's unwieldy cast with a few new additions and a worthy foe portrayed brilliantly by James Spader, who quite easily steals the show.
27. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2018. In the aftermath of Captain America Civil War, Scott Lang grapples with the consequences of his choices as both a superhero and a father. As he struggles to rebalance his home life with his responsibilities as Ant-Man, he's confronted by Hope Van Dyne and Dr. Hank Pym with an urgent new mission. Scott must once again put on the suit and learn to fight alongside the Wasp as the team works together to uncover secrets from their past. After seeing Infinity War, we are offered a lighter, brighter superhero movie powered by the effortless charisma of Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. Ant-Man and the Wasp offers a much-needed MCU palette cleanser. In fact, most of the supporting cast all had scene-stealing sequences.
Number 26, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 2017. After saving Xandar from Ronan's wrath, the Guardians are now recognised as heroes. Now the team must help their leader Star-Lord uncover the truth behind his true heritage. Along the way, old foes turn to allies and betrayal is blooming. And the Guardians find they are up against a devastating new menace who is out to rule the galaxy. This film sets out not to make it bigger in that way, but to go deeper with its characters and getting to know them more emotionally. Its action-packed plot, dazzling visuals and irrelevant humour adds up to a sequel that is almost as fun, but not quite as thrillingly fresh as its predecessor. This time you can sense how hard James Gunn is working to entertain you, maybe a little too hard. However, even with all the silliness and the snarkiness, the Guardians can still put that lump in your throat.
Number 25, X-Men, 2000. Marie, better known as Rogue, runs away from home and hitches a ride with another mutant, known as Logan, aka Wolverine. Professor Charles Xavier, who owns a school for young mutants, sends Storm and Cyclops to bring them back before it's too late. Magneto, who believes a war is approaching, has an evil plan in mind and needs young Rogue to help him. Faithful to the comics and filled with action, X-Men brings a crowded slate of classic Marvel characters to the screen, with a talented assembled cast and surprisingly sharp narrative focus. While X-Men does not take your breath away, wire to wire, the way The Matrix did, it is an accomplished piece of work with a considerable pulp watchability to it.
Number 24, Ant-Man, 2015. Armed with the astonishing ability to shrink in scale but increase in strength, conman Scott Lang must embrace his inner hero and help his mentor, Dr. Hank Pym, protect the secret behind his spectacular Ant-Man suit from a new generation of towering threats. Against seemingly insurmountable obstacles, Pym and Lang must plan and pull off the heist that could save the world. With lots of behind-the-scenes issues with this film, it is led by a charming performance by Paul Rudd. Ant-Man offers Marvel thrills on a proportionally smaller scale, a bit not as smoothly as most of its successful predecessor. Although the story dynamics are fundamentally silly and all the family stuff with its parallel father-daughter melodrama is emotional button-pushing. It is a lightweight, cliché-riddled origin story that veers between inside joke comedy, redemption storylines and admittedly nifty CGI sequences that still seem relatively insignificant compared to the high stakes and city-shattering destruction that takes place in most Avengers movies.
23. Spider-Man, 2002. When bitten by a genetically modified spider, a nerdy, shy and awkward high school student gains super-like abilities that he eventually must use to fight evil as a superhero after tragedy befalls his family. Not only does Spider-Man provide a good dose of web-swinging fun, but it also has a heart thanks to the combined charms of the director Sam and star Tobey Maguire. The filmmaker's imagination works in overdrive, from the clever design of the cobwebby opening credits and Spider-Man and MJ's upside-down kiss after one of his many rescues of her, to a finale that leaves character relationships open-ended for future adventures.
Number 22. Deadpool 2, 2018. After losing Vanessa, the love of his life, the fourth wall-breaking mercenary Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, must assemble a team and protect a young fat mutant Russell Collins, aka Firefist, from Cable, a no-nonsense dangerous cyborg from the future, and also must learn the most important lesson of all, to be part of a family again. Though it threatens to buckle under its weight of its metal gags, Deadpool 2 is a gory, gleeful lampoon of the superhero genre, buoyed by Ryan Reynolds' undeniable charm. Something ever so slightly dishonest about this character, something false about the boundaries drawn around his sadism and rage, Deadpool 2 dabbles in ugliness and its transgression, but it takes no creative risks.
Number 21. X-Men First Class, 2011. Before Charles Xavier and Eric Lansher took the names of Professor X and Magneto, they were two young men discovering their powers for the first time. Before they were arch enemies, they were the closest of friends, working together with other mutants, some familiar and some new, to stop the greatest threat the world has ever known. With a strong script, stylish direction, and powerful performances from its well-rounded cast, X-Men First Class is a welcome return to form the franchise. McAvoy and Fassbender are a casting triumph. These two have, yes, real star magnetism. They're both cool and intense, suave and unaffected, playful and dead serious about their grand comic book work.
Number 20. Black Panther, 2018. After the events of Captain America Civil War, Prince T'Challa returns home to the reclusive, technologically advanced African nation of Wakanda to serve as his country's new king. However, T'Challa soon finds that he is challenged for the throne from factions within his own country. When two foes conspire to destroy Wakanda, the hero known as Black Panther must team up with CIA agent Everett K. Ross and members of the Dora Milaje, Wakandan Special Forces, to prevent Wakanda from being dragged into a world war. Black Panther elevates superhero cinema to thrilling new heights while telling one of the MCU's most absorbing stories and introducing some of its most fully realised characters. Its refreshing answer to the increasingly stale world of the superhero cinema, exhilarating triumph on every level, from writing, directing, acting, production design, costumes, music, special effects, you name it, it did it brilliantly.
19. X2, 2003. After the events on Liberty Island, everyone at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters is settled in. Magneto is locked up in a plastic cell. Rogue and Bobby Drake have finally gotten together, and Wolverine has set off to find his origins, but it won't stay quiet for long. After a mutant attack on the president, everyone starts to fear any type of mutant. William Stryker, who plans to stop all mutants, takes over the school, causing Wolverine and his team of mutants to go into hiding. Stryker has managed to capture Xavier and will use him to create another version of Cerebro. Tightly scripted, solidly acted and impressively ambitious, X2 X-Men United is bigger and better than its predecessor, and a benchmark for comic sequels in general. Starting off with that amazing White House scene to the gut-wrenching ending, it's carried its emotional themes very well and the acting was greatly improved.
Number 18, Spider-Man Homecoming 2017. Peter Parker, the friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man, is patiently waiting for Tony Stark to give him a mission where he can help out as best as he can manage. Balancing everyday life as Peter Parker alongside being Spider-Man is a daunting task for the War Corner. It starts taking its toll when Parker encounters a gang of underground thugs selling Chitauri-based weapons for a mysterious villain known as the Vulture. Spider-Man Homecoming does whatever a second reboot can, delivering a colourful, fun adventure that fits snugly in the sprawling MCU without getting bogged down in franchise building. Younger and more optimistic portrayal of Parker, and Keaton's performance is a joy to behold.
Number 17, Doctor Strange 2016. After a horrible car accident, brilliant neurosurgeon Stephen Strange must find a way and a cure to healing his hands. His quest brings him to Kamar Tej in Nepal, where he studies under the Ancient One, who teaches him the ways of magic and alternate realities. With new skills of interdimensional travel and spells, Strange soon discovers he must protect the world from a deadly enemy who is out to destroy it. Doctor Strange is artfully balanced is outre source material against the blockbuster constraints of the MCU, delivering a thoroughly entertaining superhero origin story in the bargain. This action movie, ostensibly rooted in the mind-expanding tenet of Eastern mysticism, is different enough to establish a solid niche alongside the blockbusters combined. This is an origin story and occasionally hemmed in by the genre's narrative requirements, but it's smart enough to bring in great British actors to make the predictable paces and life lessons feel fresh and fascinating.
Number 16, Spider-Man Far From Home 2019. Our friendly neighbourhood superhero decides to join his best friends Ned and MJ and the rest of the gang on a European vacation. However, Peter's plan to leave superheroics behind for a few weeks are quickly scrapped when he begrudgingly agrees to help Nick Fury uncover the mystery of several elemental creature attacks, creating havoc across the continent. A breezily unpredictable blend of teen romance and superhero action, Spider-Man Far From Home stylishly sets the stage for the next era of the MCU. It touches all the bases of conventional Marvel movies. It doesn't take it out of this world, but it's good enough to summon the kick, or maybe just the illusion of consequence. Although advertising this film before Endgame was released, and the last we saw Spider-Man, he was dead, that was not a good idea.
15. Deadpool 2016. This is the origin story of the former Special Forces operative turned mercenary Wade Wilson, who after being subjected to a rogue experiment that leaves him with accelerated healing powers, adopts the alter ego of Deadpool. Armed with his new abilities and a dark, twisted sense of humour, Deadpool hunts down the man who nearly destroyed his life. Fast, funny and gleefully profane, the fourth-wall-busting Deadpool subverts a superhero film formula with wildly entertaining and decidedly non-family-friendly results. It successfully balanced comedy with superhero action, and that the chemistry between Ryan and Monica gave enough weight to the plot to support the tone and violence. But let's face it, without Ryan Reynolds, this film would just not work.
Number 14, Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings 2021. Shang-Chi, the master of weaponry-based kung fu, is forced to confront his past after being drawn into the Ten Rings organisation. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is not entirely free of Marvel's familiar formula, but this exciting origin story expands the MCU in so many ways. A visual effects extravaganza that gives the second-tier Shang-Chi the same over-the-top treatment that the big-timers like Hulk and Thor typically get. The result broadens Marvel Studios' spectrum of representation once again, offering audiences of Asian descent the kind of empowerment for which Black Panther paved the way a few years back. It's a superhero film that felt fresh and fun enough to feel worth a spin.
Number 13, Thor Ragnarok 2017. Imprisoned on the other side of the universe, the mighty Thor finds himself in a deadly gladiatorial contest. that pits him against the Incredible Hulk, his former ally and fellow Avenger. Thor's quest for survival leads him in a race against time to prevent the all-powerful Hela from destroying his home world and the Asgardian civilization. Exciting, funny, and above all fun, Thor Ragnarok is a colourful cosmic adventure that sets a new standard for its franchise and the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Both the banter and the fighting, it should be noted, are excellent. So whether you go to superhero movies for the glossy escapism or the pulse-pounding action, you will have the most fun you will ever have at a Marvel movie. All the actors are brilliant and stand out so much so that even poor Thor seems lost in all of it, and he is supposed to be its star.
Number 12. Big Hero 6, 2014. Robotics nerd Hiro Hamada discovers an inflatable healthcare robot, Baymax, created in the past by his brother. After a terrible life-changing accident, Hiro and Baymax team up with 4 other nerds and save their hometown San Francisco from an evil supervillain trying to take over with Hiro's invention. Agreeably entertaining and brilliantly animated, Big Hero 6 is briskly paced, action-packed and often touching. It combines Disney wonder and charm with Marvel's awe and action to develop a film that exhibits the best of both worlds. It's sweet and sharp and exciting and hilarious and comes to the rescue of what has become a dreaded movie trope, the origin story. It launches the superhero tale to a pleasurable new height, but then again, only Disney can make you cry at the loss of a pillowcase.
11. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, 2014. Steve Rogers, finding it easier to acclimate to the modern society as a soldier of S.H.I.E.L.D., learns that the organisation is compromised and a Soviet assassin known as the Winter Soldier will stop at nothing to kill Captain America, which leads him to uncover a truth that will change everything. Suspenseful and politically astute, Captain America the Winter Soldier is a superior entry in the Avengers canon and is sure to thrill Marvel diehards. Marvel takes the bold step of reducing CGI to a relatively minimum in favour of reviving the pleasures of hard-driving, old-school action, surprising character development and intriguing suspense. We are left with a big screen version of Metal Gear Solid 2, which is not a terrible thing. Maybe the Russos should do that next.
Number 10. The Avengers 2012. Loki, the adopted brother of Thor, teams up with the Chitauri army and uses the Tesseract's power to travel from Asgard to Midgard to plot the invasion of Earth and become a king. The director of the agency S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury, sets in motion Project Avengers, joining Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow and Hawkeye to save the world from the powerful Loki and the alien invasion. One of the first big team-up films of its kind, which was an accomplishment on its own. Its clamorous to save the world story is one that everyone's seen repeatedly, and the characters have been around for more than half a century in 500 comic book issues. But Whedon and his cohorts have managed to stir all the personalities and ingredients together so that the resulting dish, however familiar, is irresistibly tasty again. Everyone is the main character, everyone gets their time to shine. And the best thing that this film has done is make the Hulk great. Not since the 70s TV show has he been this good.
Number 9. Spider-Man 2, 2004. Peter Parker is an unhappy man. After 2 years of fighting crime as Spider-Man, his life has begun to fall apart. The girl he loves is engaged to someone else, his grades are slipping, he cannot keep any of his jobs, and on top of it, the newspaper Daily Bugle is attacking him viciously, claiming that Spider-Man is a criminal. He reaches the breaking point and gives up the crime fighter's life, once and for all. But after a failed fusion experiment, eccentric and obsessive scientist Dr. Otto Octavius is transformed into a supervillain, Dr. Octopus, having 4 long tentacles as extra hands. Boasting an entertaining villain and deeper emotional focus, this is a nimble sequel that improves upon its predecessor in almost every way. Nearly 20 years on, we are still seeing things from this film, from computer games to TV shows, which are still referencing this film. And let's face it, we're all really looking forward to seeing Alfred Molina's Dr. Oct in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Number 8. Captain America Civil War. With many people fearing the actions of superheroes, the government decides to push for the Hero Registration Act, a law that limits the hero's actions. This results in a division in the Avengers. Iron Man stands with the act, claiming that the actions must be kept in check, but Captain America feels that saving the world is daring enough that they cannot rely on the government to protect the world. This escalates into an all-out war between Team Iron Man and Team Captain America, while a new villain emerges. Yes, this is more Avengers 2.5 rather than Captain America 3, but Captain America Civil War begins the next wave of Marvel movies with an action-packed superhero blockbuster boasting a decidedly non-cartoonish plot and the courage to explore thought-provoking themes. This is the cinematic superhero showdown you have dreamt of since childhood, and precisely that is everything and all it wants to be. Kudos to co-directors Anthony and Joe Russo's and the team of writers for juggling more than a dozen comic book characters and nearly that many plot lines, only occasionally getting us, and us, I mean me, lost in the geek weeds. If you live and breathe Marvel, this is one of the MCU's stronger offerings. If you're a spy coming in from the cold, the answer is not so clear.
7. X-Men Days of Future Past, 2014. In 2023, the entire human race is on the brink of extinction. Sentinels, originally created to kill mutants, now hunt all humankind. The remaining survivors cannot stand against the onslaught of the Sentinel army. In order to save the future, Wolverine is sent back to 1973 in order to stop the war before it even starts. Past and present cast join up in this welcome change to form in the X-Men franchise. X-Men Days of Future Past combines the best elements of the series to produce a satisfying, fast-paced outing that ranks amongst the franchise's finest installments. While it's more dramatically diffuse than the reboot and lacks a definite villain, the new film is shot through with a stirring reverence for the Marvel Comics characters and their universe. If the characters' quandaries at times feel overly circumscribed, they are also advanced with a bracing emotional directness, devoid of either cynicism or sentimentalism, that touches genuine chords of feeling over the course of the film's runtime.
Number 6. Avengers Infinity War, 2018. As the Avengers and their allies have continued to protect the world from threats too large for any one hero to handle, a new danger has emerged from the cosmic shadows. Thanos, a villain of intergalactic infamy. His goal is to collect all 6 Infinity Stones, artifacts of unimaginable power, and use them to inflict his twisted will on all of reality. Everything the Avengers have fought for has led up to this moment, and the fate of the Earth and existence has never been more uncertain. Avengers Infinity War arguably juggles a dizzying array of MCU heroes in a fight against the gravest threat yet, and the result is thrilling, emotionally resonant blockbuster that realises its own gargantuan ambitions. It is a brashly entertainment jamboree structured to show off each superhero heroine and give them just enough to do and update their mythologies without making all feel like homework. There is plenty of action, humour and heart, and some generally effective dramatic moments. Considered on its own as a nearly 2-hour 40-minute movie, Infinity War makes little sense on its own, and that's the criticism this film gets. However, this film was never meant to be viewed or judged on its own merit. It is meant to be judged on the whole.
Number 5. Guardians of the Galaxy 2014. After stealing a mysterious orb in the far reaches of outer space, Peter Quill from Earth is now the main target of a hunt, led by the villain known as Ronan the Accuser. To help fight Ronan and his team and save the galaxy from his power, Quill creates a team of space heroes known as the Guardians of the Galaxy, to save the galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is just as irreverent as fans of the frequently zany Marvel comics would expect. As well as funny, thrilling, full of heart and packed with visual splendour, James Gunn's presumptive franchise starter is overlong, overstuffed and sometimes too eager to please, but the cheeky comic tone keeps things buoyant, as does Chris Pratt's winning performance. A well-matched ensemble rises to the challenge of launching a heroic origin film with a distinctive style, abundant thrills and no shortage of humour.
Number 4. Logan, 2017. In the not-so-distant 2029, the entire mutant race is almost obliterated, and Logan, the invincible, bestial superhero once known as the Wolverine, finds himself getting old. and his incredible healing abilities significantly weakened. As an incognito limo driver, Logan does his best to guard and keep out of sight a weary Professor Xavier. However, things will take an unexpected turn when a cryptic woman asks him to transport the young mutant girl, Laura. This film should have been the film to end the X-Men franchise. Hugh Jackman makes the most of his final outing as Wolverine with a gritty, nuanced performance in a violent but surprisingly thoughtful superhero action film that defines genre conventions, an emotional, heavy picture. But it is also an uplifting one that reminds us that it's okay to fight for something more, something better. It is both the most violent film in the series and it is the most sentimental one. When it's not showering you with blood, it is trying to make you spill tears.
3. Iron Man 2008. After being kidnapped by powerful terrorist organisation, brilliant industrialist Tony Stark narrowly escapes using an iron suit he crafted from scrap metal and spare parts. Upon returning home, he devotes all his time and resources to perfecting the Iron Man suit and using it to fight evil, sometimes in places where he least expects it. The film that kick-started the MCU will take the third spot. Powered by Robert Downey Jr.'s vibrant charm, Iron Man turbocharges the superhero genre with a deft intelligence and infectious sense of fun. The film's emotional truth, pitch-perfect casting and plausibly rendered super science that made it faithful to the source material while updating it and recognising what's made that material so enduring isn't just the high-tech call of a man in a metal suit, but the human condition that got him there. At the end of the day, it is Robert Downey Jr. who powers the lift off, separating this from most other superhero movies.
Number 2. Avengers Endgame 2019. After the devastating events of Avengers Infinity War, the universe is in ruins due to the efforts of the mad titan Thanos. With the help of remaining allies, the Avengers must assemble once more in order to undo Thanos' actions and undo the chaos to the universe, no matter what the consequences may be in store and no matter who they face. This film transcends the comic book film genre and becomes one of the biggest films in cinematic history. Exciting, entertaining and emotionally impactful, Avengers Endgame does whatever it takes to deliver a satisfying finale to Marvel's epic Infinity Saga. This film to be a worthy sequel to its predecessor, the Russo's direction to stick close to the experience of the remaining Avengers proves a rewarding one, as they have expressly constructed the film as an extended victory lap for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Got a favourite character for any Marvel movie over the past decade, no matter how obscure? Prepare to get fan service, especially with that final fight.
Number 1. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2018. Teen Miles Morales becomes the Spider-Man of his universe and must join with 5 spider-powered individuals from other dimensions to stop a threat for all realities. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse matches bold storytelling with striking animations for a purely enjoyable adventure with heart, humour and plenty of superhero action. It's somehow both the nerdiest and most inviting superhero film in a long time. Every single frame oozes with fan service. Now, as this is not part of the MCU has taken tips from this film, as it is now pushing its own multiverse. What distinguishes Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in the end is that it takes its mission seriously. Even when it is being transparently silly, yet somehow through sheer creative gumption does something new in the superhero genre, particularly praising the use of the comic book's visual language, as well as the character's dynamic.
Wow, we got there in the end. So we've gone through all 70 films based on Marvel properties that have been released theatrically. What did you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments below. Do you have your own list? Write that in the comments below. If you want to keep up to date with more content like this, thank you very much for your time and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.